What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we went and picked up our engine from the machine shop. On the way back, had to stop at the gym. Gotta work off this COVID weight. Anyways, you know, we're repping Motion Raceworks at the gym. Not sponsored, would love to be. Anyways, we got our engine stand plate mounted up, and I think we're just gonna pick it up. I mean, honestly, it's not that heavy, so hopefully we don't drop it. You'll just have to wait and see. Let's do it. Alright, so I think the technique we're going to try is putting the stand on it now. The engine's upside down, you know, which I don't know if that's good or bad. We're going to give it a shot. And to be honest, this is all happening because I'm too lazy to get the cherry picker out. The thing is just so darn heavy, and I'm not in the mood for that. So, right off the bat, we're hitting the trailer hitch. Let's see what we can do. Put our safety pin in. Alright, just like that, we have an engine. You can see it? No, not really. Okay. Alright, so got the engine back, and what we did was they pulled the crank out, pulled the pistons obviously. They're all cleaned up. You can see how clean they are compared to what they were. Inspected everything for cracks. Everything came back. He said it looked fantastic. Threw in new ring sets and new main bearings and rod bearings and cam bearings. Basically is what happened to the block. He also polished the and balanced the crankshaft for me. Said it was pretty spot on. So that was kind of to be expected. And then for the heads, which I'll pull them out of the truck in a minute, but the heads got milled down just barely. He said he barely took anything off. And he also milled the valve seats. So let me get those out of the car. Let me kind of get everything cleaned up, and I'll bring you right back. Alright, so we're going to start off the fresh engine build. And the way we're going to go about this build is I'll probably take an hour at the end of each day after work to work on it. So it's going to be perhaps a little choppy, and the sequence in which we do things might be a little goofy. So you can expect to see me wearing a bunch of different clothes. I just got back from the gym. But we're gonna move on over, see if I can move the tripod a little. Can you see that? We're going to get set up on the engine, and we're going to start by test fitting our camshaft. Here are the cam specs. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can focus. Here's the cam specs, so you can see it. We are running a Brian Tooley Racing Stage 4 cam for LS3s. And it might be a little too aggressive for what we're doing. That's going to be part of the fun to find out. We got ourselves some assembly lube, and we're going to liberally lube up everything, actually. Going to do the cam lobes just for the lifters to ride on. And for this last bit, I use 2 of the water pump bolts. They are the right thread and they're nice and long for you to grip. So I just thread those guys in. That allows me to get a little bit of leverage on the camshaft. Just like so. So that went well. So we got our lifters, and they are they've been soaking for 24 hours, actually longer than 24 hours, in the break-in oil that we're going to be running. I think you saw that earlier. Anyways, and we got our new lifter trays. So very straightforward. Hard to mess this up really, because this notch right here lines up with the notch in the tray. And then single bolt in the middle. And what we want to do is, should put gloves on probably, but what we're going to do is take our lifters, and I just want to spin it by hand. I don't know if you can even see that. Maybe you can down here. Spin it by hand. Make sure there's no tough spots. I'm going to set it to the side, and I'm going to do it in sets of 4 because that's obviously how many go in the lifter trays. Alright, now that we got our lifters in our tray, we can flip it into the engine. And everything goes in nice and smooth. You definitely don't want to force anything. And then we got our lifter tray bolt, which has a little collar on it. There's actually a name for these bolts. I forget what it is. But anyways, we're going to take a little bit of blue thread locker. And we'll just use a little bit of blue. So these bolts get torqued down to only 106 inch-pounds, which is like hardly anything. So this is a OEM MLS style head gasket, as you can see here. And you want it to say front, obviously going towards the front. And it only allows you to do that one way. Alright, so I got my head, and I wiped down the mating surface, and we're going to slap this bad boy on. Okay, now that we got the head on like that, we can open our, we're using ARP head bolts, And I was gonna go with studs originally, but I had heard from some guys that it can be really difficult to pull the head off in the car with the studs because it has much more like room it has to lift off of the stud. So I think for the horsepower rating, you know, I think this is probably going to be 550 at the crank, maybe like 480 to the wheels. I don't know. It's not too crazy. These head bolts will be perfectly fine. So on these ARP head bolts, we have these washers. Let's see if we can get it to focus on the camera. These washers have a bevel on one side. Not sure if you can see that. There's the bevel. And so when installing these head bolts, that bevel is going to go towards the head of the bolt. Just like that. And then ARP gives you their assembly lube, basically. It's basically, I want to say it's just an anti-seize, but you definitely want to use theirs. And what we're going to do is, it doesn't take a lot, but what we're going to do is put a little bit on the top of the washer between that and the bolt, like that. And we got too much, kind of splooged out on me a little bit too much. Anyways, then we'll put a little bit on the threads, and it doesn't have to be a lot by any means, because we got to make this last. There's 10 of these bigger bolts per side, per head, and 5 of the smaller bolts per head. Alright, we got all of our head bolts lubed up and ready to tighten down. I'm going to take them all down by hand first, just to snug it up. You could probably use a drill for this and just be careful not to put any torque on, but this works well. We've put so much time and energy into this build that doing a little bit of work by hand is not the end of the world. So and we'll switch over to our 10 mil to do the smaller bolts. So we got our torque wrench, and we're going to be making 3 passes on the bigger head bolts. First pass will be at 25 foot-pounds, second pass will be at 50 foot-pounds, and the third pass will be at 80 foot-pounds. And then after that is done, we'll do a single pass on the smaller ones to 25 foot-pounds, and that'll be good. The pattern that we're going to follow is as prescribed with all LS engines, I guess you could say, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so we're going to do that pattern 3 times at our different, at 25, 50, and 80, like I said. And then we'll move on to the smaller ones. finishing our Valvetrain. All we have left is put the push rods in and the rocker arms on. I'm using the Brian Tooley Racing chromoly push rods, and I will be putting some of our assembly lube on either end before dropping them in. Because the assembly lube's kind of a pain in the butt, I'm going to kind of fast forward through this part. Alright, now that we got the push rods in, we can put our rocker arms on. And these rocker arms are the ones that we did the BTR trunnion upgrade. And if you missed that video, it's the last video, so go take a look at that. You can see how we did it. I'm putting very, very little pressure on these. My camera shut off, but anyways, we got it torqued down. Bar the engine over, top dead center, make sure I basically take the pressure off each valve, torque it, do it again, torque it, run through it a couple times, just make sure everything's good. Next, we are going to grab our valve cover. The valve cover is a little bit of a work in progress. You can see the hardware is not yet cleaned up, but the valve cover itself looks pretty nice, I think. It's definitely my favorite color, red. I think what we'll do is probably hit up ICT billet and get one of their billet coil brackets. Maybe we'll even powder coat that red to match. Come on, you're somewhere in there. And then what I'll also do is, because we're in such a rush trying to get this engine in the car and ready to go to the track, I didn't really have time to work on these bolts, but the bolt heads will also kind of clean up. At the time of filming this video, I didn't quite know how long it was going to be. As you can see, we're up to 18 minutes, and that's a little bit longer than I prefer. Hopefully you're enjoying the LS3 build, and hopefully you're as excited as I am to get it in the car and start ripping it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider hitting the subscribe button, and as always, hit that thumbs up button for me. In the next video, we'll continue the assembly of the LS3, and real soon we'll be dropping it into the car. Can't wait to see y'all in the next one.